Are you here to hear about a wonderful indie pixel art game with a thrilling story, great setting, and stellar decision-based storytelling that makes you truly appreciate games as an art form? Then play Papers, Please. This video is about Last Report. Last Report is a game that I got exposed to through the most regular means possible, because my little cousin was watching a manly badass hero playthrough of it on the TV of a room I was in. And from the approximately 14 minutes of it that I saw, as cliche as it sounds, I knew I needed to play it and make a video about it. I will not be giving a plot summary or anything. If you want to know the plot in more detail, there are plenty of playthroughs. The game is like €1 on sale and the full playthrough is only 15 minutes. Oh yeah, about that! The game was kind of doomed to fail from the get-go because it opted for a sub-hour playtime while trying to be a job simulator story game. The game it is most often compared to in reviews is Papers, Please, but their similarities start and end at working in a menial job behind a desk. A story-based job simulator tends to really require you to feel like you are, doing a job, one that is painstaking or boring but always repetitive. Like a real-life job. I wouldn't know myself, but maybe I will manage to get past an interview by the time this video comes out. And so without the proper feeling of repetitiveness due to the game being so short, instead of the game feeling like a job simulator, it ends up feeling more like a university trip simulator. Hell, barely that, because the game has you file 15 reports before things start getting spooky. And mind you, filing a report takes like 10 seconds. The main gameplay loop is that you look at a report on your desk, drag it into your computer, as you do, and then you either file what rule of the park is being broken, or you say that the document is invalid due to one reason or another. If the document is corrupted, you just shred it. And when I think of a job like that, the first two things I think are, damn, that must get pretty tedious, and damn, that sounds really lonely. And the game drops the ball on both. So as stated previously, you get through around 15 reports before things get horror tropey. But before that happens, you get not 1, not 2, not even 5, but 8 different cutscenes where you talk to people. And it isn't any dull work talk or anything. This is just developing doomed characters in such a way that we think, no, don't kill them, they have so much to live for. The first conversation between the main character and, what was his name? Bob? Oh yeah, John. The first conversation between the for some mysterious reason until the last moment unnamed main character William and his friend John has both of them talk about their families, with the same happening once Harry gets introduced, which is also around half the dialogue you get with both of these characters because again, this game is 50 minutes long. The point of all this dialogue isn't meant to make us feel like we are all working a boring job for some reason beyond our will. We are here because we want to be, because this is the job that William and his co-workers chose. And I can easily see why, because oh my god, this is the easiest and lowest stakes job ever. So one important thing to elevate the stakes of a game like this is to incentivize the player to do well at their job. No matter how you go about it, I should feel some sort of reason behind caring a single bit about correctly doing my job. So why on earth do I not get punished for doing everything wrong? After my first playthrough where I tried to do as well as I could, made a few mistakes but ultimately didn't care, I decided to do an all wrong run, and I can show the difference between the runs on one screen. This is it. This is the whole difference between the runs. I'm not exaggerating in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter whether you take the time to do your job correctly or just shred everything or report every paper as illegal parking. The story will unfold exactly the same way. Hell, because of that, it makes it hard to even call Last Report a game. It is more of a movie where you get to fidget around with the props in between. At least the fidget toys have good animation and... okay. I will talk about that part too. The art of the game is stellar, without a doubt what took the longest in this game's creation. The game looks good, it is well animated. The few times the game does something interesting with its visuals are decently well executed, at least from an aesthetic appeal standpoint. And that is about it in terms of visuals. They aren't particularly scary. The first time that the blood appears on a report, it is shown in red, which is a good way to set the tone, but instead of being a slight nod that spooky stuff is about to happen, it is literally the beginning of everything instantly becoming haunted. As 2 reports later, you get told about how the previous person that worked here got erased from existence, and 2 more reports later, you see a dead body on a report. And just like any other report, it literally does not matter what you do with these dead body reports either. Hell, you get an achievement for shredding them. And not long after that, you get told by someone over the walkie-talkie that, quote, the heart of the anomaly could be in the reports, unquote, in what is, without a single doubt, one of the funniest bits of dialogue written unironically, with such gems as, fuck, these reports are terrifying, and just start submitting the reports. It's our only hope now. It is fairly obvious what the game tried to do, but it just feels like it was forcing stakes where there never could be any. Before this, the only importance one could find in the job is the real-world importance of park rangers, aka protecting the park environment. But to feel that much emotional stakes, you already have to agree with the game's message to such a high degree, and be immersed in the world, and not think about the fact that all you are doing is filing reports for previously committed crimes that were already largely correctly reported by the system automation. Instead of a natural meaning to a job that is then elevated, the job goes from meaningless to world-defining in one line. And even then, from the player's point of view, it would make more sense to just sift through the stack of papers until you find this heart of the anomaly without caring about filing. This, alongside the fact that you slide the papers into your computer, makes it feel like the game was intended to digitally give you a report automatically. But then they got the idea for this one report, and partly the final report, and decided that it was worth it to make them on paper just for those two. And that decision ended up making the entire stakes feel pointless, even when they tried to force it onto us by not making the job matter itself, but by only making it matter in relation to the big horror. And on that note, I'm so scared. The horror of the game is split into 3 different plots that are all loosely related. The previous appearance, Emily, and the monster. The previous appearance, aka Mendax, is first brought up to you by Douglas in the first of the 2 dialogue cutscenes we have with him. I do have some nice things to say about this exchange too. Douglas does know the possibility of him misremembering or putting dots together where there were none, which would make sense when you're trying to explain the mysterious death of a friend from decades ago. They don't really follow up on this though, which is kind of unfortunate. And sadly, this doesn't save it from the most mild mistake that completely throws the atmosphere out of the window: the text and dialogue formatting. This might seem like a nitpick, but I can show what I mean. In the visual art forms trying to convey dialogue, conveying the intent and emotion behind that dialogue in critical moments is very important. But since they can't just put them in brackets because that would break the immersion, comics, sound, animation, and visual novels tend to use font, size, and color to show the tone of speech. Loud text is large, while whispering is small. Regular fonts are used for normal speech, while stylized text is used for exaggerated statements and onomatopoeia. Color is either used to symbolize a character or the emotion they feel in relation to the general color symbolism. So why on earth is Douglas's text in full size and red? You know what this looks like? This doesn't look like he's scared. This looks like he's trying to scare me. The whole time while reading this scene, I kept thinking, this feels like I'm being told a fireside horror story, not this feels like a man giving a traumatic recount of a mysterious murder. And the dialogue itself is formatted in such a way where it doesn't even feel like he's struggling to speak. He speaks in long lines, rather than making the player press the next line button several times to both build suspense and more appropriately portray him being scared. He blurts things out a sentence or 2 at a time. And this isn't even to begin talking about what he actually says. Long story short, the previous guy that worked here was found dead, and his condition was abnormal. When the park found out, they disposed of his body in very weird and secretive conditions, and Douglas has not seen the victim's family since either. Overall, scary enough. More important is backstory to Douglas than anything relating to immediate danger though. I have so many complaints about how it was written though. Again, from the formatting of the dialogue, to Douglas emphasizing how things completely unrelated to the death were all off, to William saying what else have they been hiding from us. Motherfucker, who is they? If the entire time while reading dialogue I feel like I'm being spoken to not by the character but by the author, that dialogue in my opinion fails. Exceptions apply, but this is not one of them. This is meant to be character dialogue, but instead all I see is the writer sitting down, typing the lines and thinking, wouldn't it be scary if he said this next? And that is about all we get from this storyline. We find out what happened to his friend at the end of the game, but who the people that took out his body were, or why his body was writhing, goes unresolved. All we know is that they were researching, quote, the phenomenon, unquote, aka the monster, but again, don't know why. I think it is fine to leave horror vague, but this feels more like, again, the writer wanted to put as many stereotypically scary things as they could in as little story space as they had, which kind of applies to all the horror things in this game, like Emily. Emily is... Emily isn't. So over the course of the game, you'll learn about this missing girl, Emily, and it could just be that I have forgotten too much since playing the game, but I'm pretty sure she does not matter one bit. Most significance she has is that we know why she disappeared, and it was the phenomenon. And it isn't like Mandax, where he was killed by the phenomenon, but was apparently the chosen one, so he managed to create some clock in the void and transfer it to the cabin. Despite not being able to otherwise access normal world, she just disappeared. I guess they wanted something more scary than all the gore that the game already showed, and they opted for a missing child poster with a child giggling and a few nods to when she might have disappeared, because we needed more foreshadowing for the phenomenon. Okay, in the script, for some reason I wrote the anomaly instead of the phenomenon, so that's what it's like for the next section. I am not making this a separate title card, but oh god, I have so much to say about the anomaly. The anomaly, as the game refers to it, is, from what I can gather, everything mysterious that happens at the park due to the influence of scary lorax. So the plot of the game does in the end turn out to all happen because of some monster that came into being because nature wanted to stop humanity's destruction of it. And it started this by killing employees of a protected natural park. Listen, man, I know that they wanted to have a "but not all humans are bad" thing at the end, but I can't take the underlying message seriously when the main monster's two demands are either the annihilation of humanity or William doing paperwork. And again, this is right after it kills 4 people whose job is protecting nature and giving absolutely no counter-argument to being told so. It felt like they wanted to have both a force of nature villain, but also make it have a reason for doing what it does. And I'm sorry, but that is just the worst decision you can ever make in villain creation. Not that a villain like that can't exist or be well written, but you would need a lot of time to make the character make sense, especially if you're trying to make a villain who the player is meant to in any way agree with. The horror of this game at the same time tries to strike fear through instinct, through the threat of the big monster getting you and everyone around you, but then it is also relying on you being scared in a rational way, and it doesn't do it in a thought-provoking way. It, throughout the game, relies on you caring about the environment to feel like your job has any intrinsic importance, and then it takes the fear of environmental destruction, something very real and scary when thought about, and tries to put it into something you are instinctively scared of, but in such a way that your instinctive fear of something, due to its unpredictability and lack of reason, clashes with the fact that you reasonably agree with the importance of protecting what it is trying to protect. I feel like people shit on this reveal for the wrong reason. It wasn't hard to figure out that this game was going to have a protect nature message at the end because the entire game is riddled with the messaging, and that is not the bad part. If you think there is too much messaging is the biggest problem with this game, I need you to open your ears. The problem is that this message is now all of a sudden being told to us by the monster that is otherwise mindless, a literal force of nature, a thing you cannot reason with, yet it is trying to act reasonable and we are meant to on some level agree. Do you not see why this is the worst way to send your message? And now that I complained about the final reveal, time for miscellaneous complaints about random scares with little elaboration. A little scare complaint lightning round. Editor Liz, pull out the CinemaSins ding. The game starts with a things barely work around here to set up so many future scares and then does close to nothing about it. Most of the game's scares rely on audio shrills, which is just a cheap form of jump scare that does actually nothing for tone. The bloody reports thing works fine the first time, but by the time you get through the third, you are already desensitized to it, which isn't helped by the fact that you don't even have to look at the picture for any story progressive reason, audio shrill included. Henry walking in all bloody and then dying on your desk almost works as a scare, up until you then have to do paperwork over his body, which just feels like a dark comedy skit, audio shrill included. The one good scare sequence the game has becomes painfully dull once you realize you can just remove your hands off the keyboard for the whole thing, which I realized accidentally as I didn't register you'd be able to move the flashlight until after the one thing that moves during it went by, audio shrill included. Also, this scare sucks in every way. It is just overly rendered gore in your face blown up by a shotgun. Also, I'm sorry. William just got something blown up by a shotgun in front of his face. He should be dead. Audio shrill included. The captures themselves suck and are repetitive, and I'm 90% sure that the only reason they were included was for these two scares that both do nothing for building up the anomaly as a villain or for properly scaring the player. Audio shrill included. What the fuck is this thing? This is meant to be a scare that looks back in time, but it just shows some mysterious figure and hands on a table? Is this meant to be what happened to Mendax right before he became Mendax? It still doesn't explain how we got to the 225 picture and isn't in any way necessary. It feels like setup for something we don't have, while also flopping as a time travel report, which the game does slightly better later in the game. Audio shrill surprisingly not included. I guess this scare does only keep the amount of sins it has. And to continue with the sins, oh my god, this fucking device. He's fat and he don't run too fast, but he's faster than me. Shove my walkie-talkie, man. I have to give 20 sins just for this walkie-talkie sound, and for making it so it always starts playing when you can't instantly pick up the walkie-talkie, and by making the walkie-talkie require an extra button press to turn on just to let me hear one more wonderful beep of it. Do you like this sound? I love this sound. I had my headphones off while recording this sound. I will name my unborn child. Also, I'm sorry, one review asked whether this is the sticky key sound, and that is funnier than anything else I could write to riff on it. The reason I felt the need to give this thing its own section was 1, because I wanted a title card with walkie-talkie man playing, and 2, because it wasted so much of my time and patience that I would do a disservice to my own emotions if I didn't. You interact with the walkie-talkie in 2 ways over the course of the game. Either you get called, which you will know by hearing the trumpets of heaven, or you will pick it up from your desk and call someone. Anytime you pick it up, you have the ability to call 4 to 5 people: John, Douglas, Caroline, Henry, and if you are giving info to the unnamed ranger after he called you, you can call him back. And at first, the idea of being able to prompt dialogue with any of these characters at any moment feels amazing. You can put so much detail, give all characters so much they can say about themselves. You can have the anomaly be described from so many different points of view at once, and then you try actually calling anyone. So I haven't done the math, but if I were to wager a bet, I would say less than 10% of the time you try to call anyone, you will get any response. And the odds are even lower that that answer will be at all interesting. Even at the one moment where it would have made the most sense to put a response that would have meant so much, they just omitted it. Near the end of the game, if you solve the mini puzzle that requires you to click the only unhighlighted interactable object in the game and fumble putting in a report into your computer, you get to use the watch. The watch is an object that Mendax presumably put into your cabin from the void, where he built it, and what it does is it brings back everything that the monster killed. Emphasis here is put on everything, though we never find out what the sinister implications of it are. But besides that, at this point in the game, everyone you can call is dead, besides Caroline, who is just not in the park and is living her best life. So once you click the watch, everyone is finally back to life, and so you'd imagine that you would be able to check in on them, see how they are doing, do they remember anything, where they are, did they come back in one piece, or is it some sort of they come back but they aren't healed deal? Maybe they are zombies. Either way, this is the best time to get answers for something from your peers. And if you thought that, you would be facing the same screen that I was facing. I think the best way to describe how I feel about this decision is bewildered. I can appreciate what they went for with the alternate endings, or at least the intent behind it. So in the final cutscene, this is the final cutscene by the way, your character looks back from the void to see 4 people, meant to represent 4 people you can call throughout the game. No matter what, you see Caroline healthy on the other side, and if you got the good ending, the others are with her. If you didn't, they are mangled and hanging in the void. The point is the implied difference, that you cannot experience the change that you made, but you can rest assured knowing that only you had to suffer. But I think it was executed rather shittily, and here's a clip showing why. I think it's pretty safe to say that I'm not even gonna bother to look at the final cutscene. I feel like that clip speaks for itself, so I'm not gonna say much. All I will say is that at this point, this was my 3rd run of the game after a normal run and an all wrong run. And to reiterate, the one thing that would have been meaningful in this run would be if you got to call them one last time. You got a call from everyone right before their deaths, so it would have been interesting to let us flip the script, call everyone with what we at this point know is going to be our last chance. But no, things around here barely work. So there's no signal, and we get no closure. All because of the poor implementation. This fucking... It's over, isn't it? Isn't it? Isn't it? When I first saw this game, I really did not want to insult it because I saw the work of a person that still wanted to make something good. And truth be told, they still did create a finished thing. But I do not feel bad insulting the game, if anything because I know that a large majority of the people that played this game seem to praise it so much. The game has a very positive rating on Steam, and I can say I'm happy for the creator, and happy for anyone that felt they got something enjoyable out of this game. I feel like a lot of the people that left the reviews had their own gripes, even the positive ones, either think the game is too short or having issues with the ending or lack of input. And almost all the positive reviews say it is good, quote, for its price, and I'm sorry, I'm the one meant to be shitting on this game, but you don't say that the art someone made is only good if all you have to pay for it is $1. Shimon, if you are watching this and you made it this far, first off, props for listening to my complaints this far through. Secondly, do not let anything I or anyone else said bring you down from making more games. The game still looks great and has some interesting storytelling choices, and from my knowledge is your first game ever. And at the end of the day, you did finish it. I will look forward to playing whatever game Monopixel Games might release next if they ever do. I think Last Report was an example of a game that people liked almost entirely because of how it looks, and is a better example of people going, the game is great, look at these graphics, than any soy track you might see made for provoking people that like realistic looking games. And it makes sense. The game's creator previously made game assets, and a game having good graphics is a really good strength. But I still felt like I wanted to talk about what the game is like once you stop to think and look under the very pretty hood. And what was in there was a story that should have been made, but not as a game. So, in short, make your projects, think about how the art medium you're using can enhance your story, and protect nature. Bye bye.